All right, we get ready to kick off with our Class 1A state championship game in DeKalb on Friday morning at 10 o'clock. And we're going to break down some of the things to watch for in this game between Lena Winslow and Central A&M. And there's a lot of common similarities when you break down these two teams as far as points per game for, points per game against, average amount of victories, and even their playoff experience and history is somewhat similar when you break down these two teams. So we'll take a look at the Central A&M Raiders here. Obviously, they enter this game with the 13-0 mark. They won a state title in Class 2A in 1997, and they were also the Class 2A runner-up in 1992, 1995, 1996, and 2001. They enter this game with a playoff record of 46-25, and it's their 27th trip to the playoffs if you count their time as Moweaqua High School before the consolidation into Moweaqua Central A&M. And it's their third consecutive trip to the playoffs, and this is their sixth trip to state. They're averaging 45.9 points per game, and they are giving up about 14.9 points per game. And their path to get to DeKalb, in round one, they beat Havana 55-20. Round two, they beat Fisher 69-34. Round three, they beat Arcola 42-8. And then last week, they beat Athens 35-21.
They're coming in as the second seed for Class 1A. And obviously, that leaves only one number one, and that gets to be our Lena Winslow Panthers. Obviously, coming out of the NUIC North, they're playing for their fourth state title, with other titles coming in 2010, 2013, and 2017. Their current playoff record is 42-22. This is their 26th trip to the playoffs and their 21st consecutive. And like we mentioned, it's their fourth trip to state. Panthers points per game is 47.7. And on average, they give up 11.30. To get here, they beat Aurora Christian 46-8 in round one, played Orangeville in round two, and beat them 52-8. In the quarters, they played Ackland and beat them 52-20. And last week, they beat Anawan Wethersfield in a matchup 44-30.
Very good. And when you take a look at what Central A&M has done offensively, rushing yards is about 2,575 yards, otherwise 198 yards per game. And passing yards is somewhat similar, 2,558 yards for 196 yards per game. Their total yardage is 5,133 yards on the season, and they bring in about 395 yards per game total. Obviously, some of their top games in the regular season was their Week 3 win over Tuscola, 49-14, which really, that game was the one that got the rest of the state looking at, wow, we need to watch Central A&M. In Week 5, they beat St. Teresa 28-26, and then their most notable game since then was last week against Athens, where they won 35-21 to punch their ticket to state.
In comparison, Lena Winslow, they sit at 4,838 rushing yards. They average 372.1 yards per game. For passing yards, they're coming in at 919 yards. Total per game, on average, is 70.7 yards. Their total yards over the year is 5,757, and their total yards per game, on average, is 442.8. I think that is really awesome.
Yeah.
For top games on the year, Week 5, they visited Stockton, and that was an interesting matchup for sure. And they did beat Stockton 30-0. Week 6, they faced a tough Orangeville team, beat them 46-7. And in Week 7, they saw Forreston 46-14. But I think the most notable game was their game versus Anawan Wethersfield, when they beat them 44-30.
Taking a look at the offense for Central A&M, the play really starts with the quarterback, Connor Heaton. On the year, he's got 2,488 yards passing with 32 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. and he has 837 yards rushing with 20 touchdowns. So when we talk about RPO offense, that's run pass option, and Connor Heaton is going to be the playmaker in this offense that sets the tone going forward for the Raiders as they get ready to play the Panthers this week. His primary target in the pass game is Jacob Parody, who has 1,274 yards receiving with 19 touchdowns, and he's got another 235 yards rushing with 4 touchdowns. And he couples that with Connor Hutchins. Connor Hutchins is the guy that's going to be pretty much our RPO guy for the most part. He has 670 yards receiving with 6 touchdowns, and then another 574 yards rushing with 14 touchdowns. We don't want to forget the play of Hunter Gregory, who also adds an additional 210 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. And then Bryson Bergener and Griffin Brown are the other 2 wide receivers that Central A&M are going to utilize in this game. Both those guys have 3 receiving touchdowns on the year. Bergener has 294 yards total, and Griffin Brown has 192 yards. On the line, you're going to have Lane Whitney at center. He goes 5'11", 270. At the guards, you have Christian Perkins, who goes 6', 240, and Jarrett Robertson at 5'11", 220. And at the tackles, left tackle will be Jesky Maples, who runs 6'2", 240, and the right tackle is Keegan Waterman, who is 6'4", 252. Maples is the one that you need to watch. He's the one who's going to call all the line plays from that left tackle position. And that's a little bit different than what people are used to. You're usually used to the centers calling those line plays, but Jesky Maples is the one doing it for the Raiders this year. On defense, they're going to come out in a 4-3. This 4-3 is probably going to turn into a 4-5 as they are going to look to stack the box. I would not be surprised to see 9 in the box. I would not be surprised to see 10 in the box with 1 safety deep. That is going to be started up front with Maples and Robertson, who are going to be at the defensive tackles. Both those guys create mayhem in the middle. Maples has 75 tackles on the year, 20 tackles for a loss, where Robertson has 70 tackles and 5 tackles for a loss. The end positions are going to be Christian Perkins and Trey Myers. Christian Perkins also starts on the offensive side of the ball, but Trey Myers is a one-way player. He goes 6', 255. He has 29 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, and 2 fumble recoveries on the year. At the linebackers, you're going to see Hunter Gregory, Connor Hutchins, and Jacob Daniels. Hutchins is the second leading tackler on the team. He has 100 tackles, 8 tackles for a loss, 2 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. And Jacob Daniels has 57 tackles with 2 tackles for a loss and a fumble recovery. And then Gregory has 49 tackles with 4 tackles for a loss on the year. In the backfield, you're going to see Jacob Parody at safety. He's going to play more like a linebacker. He's only going to be 8 to 10 yards back, so he's going to basically be more of a strong safety than a regular free safety. And Parody leads the team in tackles. He wants to get after the ball. He's got 111 tackles on the year, 4 tackles for a loss, 5 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. So those are some very impressive stats for the 2-time All-Stater. Connor Heaton, the quarterback, is also going to be a defensive back, along with Bergener and Brennan Simmons. Bergener, of course, plays wide receiver on offense. Simmons is also another wide receiver / running back on offense. And those two come in with 33 tackles and 43 tackles, respectively. If you take a look at the size of the line is going to average about 240 pounds on both the offensive and defensive sides. Running backs are going to be about 170 and linebackers at 177. Taking a look at the cornerbacks for Central A&M, they're going to average about 6'3" and 177 pounds, so they're going to have a lot of height. They're going to have some size to them. They're going to be fast. They're going to play physical. They're going to come after you. Like we mentioned, Parody is the leader in tackles. He stands 5'11", 155 pounds, but he wants to come up. He wants to play physical with you. He wants to hit you quick. and he wants to get the ball on the ground or turn the ball over through the air. He's just a very aggressive player. That's why they have him so close to the line of scrimmage. Obviously, Lena Winslow is going to counter that on offense with their wing T and wishbone style offense, where Sean Ormiston leads the team in rushing with 1,767 yards and 23 touchdowns. He also has 36 yards receiving with a touchdown. The guy calling the plays is going to be Luke Benson. He has 919 yards passing with 16 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, 38 yards rushing on the year with another 4 touchdowns. Can't forget the other running back in Isaiah Bruce. He is going to play at both tight end and running back. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in either spot during this game. Isaiah Bruce has 1,018 yards rushing with 16 touchdowns, another 132 yards receiving with a touchdown on the year. One of the more explosive guys that you really have to pay attention to is Mari Roby. The sophomore comes in with 709 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. He also has 227 yards receiving with 5 touchdowns. Those 227 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns come on just 8 receptions on the year. And then we can't forget Cade Crispin. Obviously, he's going to be the tone center at the tight end position. He's going to split out wide to be that outside receiver as well. He has 448 yards receiving with 7 touchdowns on the season on 21 receptions. So basically 1 in 3 passes to Crispin has gone for a score on the year, to break that down for you. At center, you're going to see Joe Lenz. He's going to come in at 5'10", 201 pounds. The guards are going to be Alex Lemon and Ethan Gift. Lemon is 6'2", 180, and Gift is 5'11", 240. And at the tackles, you're going to have the sophomore Maddox Sargent, comes in at 6'1", 205. And, of course, the Iowa-bound Jennings Dunker, who's 6'5", 270 at the right tackle position. On defense, Coach Aaron and staff is going to stick with their 4-4 base defense, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go into a nickel-style defense, which is more of a 4-2 with 5 D-backs, as they're going to be playing a spread offense. Obviously, that's going to be spearheaded by the defensive ends, Ronnie Valentine and Isaiah Bruce. And the defensive tackles are Jennings Dunker and Ethan Gift. And talk about a menacing presence at the defensive line. That defensive line averages about 245 pounds, and you're talking about 2 D1 players on that defensive line as well, in both Bruce and Dunker. Leading the charge for the Lena Winslow defense is Sean Ormiston, who has 68 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 interception. And he's going to be flanked on either side by Hudson Humphrey with 56 tackles and 9 tackles for a loss. Cole Gerber with 41 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 fumble recovery. And then the other linebacker is Cade Crispin, who is actually second in the team in tackles with 62 tackles, 4 for a loss, and 1 fumble recovery. The defensive backfield is the area of concern in this game, obviously, with recent play for the Lena Winslow Panthers, specifically last week against Anawan Wethersfield. They got picked apart more so than what they have had been in the rest of the season. And that's going to be Jensen Block at the corner, Alec Bennett at the other corner, and Mari Roby at safety. Between the 3 of them, they actually have 8 interceptions on the year. So when we say that, you know, it was uncharacteristic for Lena Winslow to play the way that they did against Anawan Wethersfield, there's proof right there, as they are very good at defending the pass. At running back, the Panthers are going to go about 5'11", 180 pounds, and as was mentioned to me earlier this week, that can be kind of skewed, as you have 6'2", 280-pound Isaiah Bruce, who is also in there as a running back. At times, more times than not. The line is going to average about 208 pounds center to tackle. No, it's about 219. I'm sorry. Lena's line's about 219 on average, center to tackle. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, like we said, that defensive line averages about 254 pounds. The linebackers are about 186 pounds. The cornerbacks are 162 with the safety Roby at 145. Taking a look side by side on the offense, size-wise is going to favor Central A&M in this game. The only spots where Lena Winslow outsizes Central A&M is going to be defensive tackle and at the ends. So line play is going to be a huge key in this game. Lena Winslow is going to have to get off the line. They're going to have to get off the line fast. Granted, you talk to many coaches throughout the area and coaches all around. They would rather have a player that's on the line that's fast and strong that can get off the ball quick rather than big and slow. So, granted, this is going to be a trench warfare game where Lena Winslow really needs to come ready to play, and they need to be physical up front to get that outside run going, along with the run up the middle, because they want to hit you on that counter tray, they want to hit you on the dive, they want to hit you on the trap, and then they want to run the belly as well, which they've had a lot of success doing. And then, of course, we can't forget the play-action pass, which has been phenomenal for Lena Winslow this year, last year, the year before. They always seem to come up with something in that play-action pass that works for them. And so they're not just limited to the rushing attack like a lot of people think. Obviously, on the defensive side, again, the size on the defense favors Central A&M. There again, we'll see what happens with that, but it's the line of Lena Winslow this time on the defensive side of the ball that actually outweighs the Central A&M line. So you're going to look for that pass rush, and that's where Lena Winslow needs to be very physical at and stay on the hammer, because with the offense that Central A&M brings, they're probably only going to be rushing 4 people because they're going to need to keep people back to cover the pass, especially in this kind of offense. The big key for Lena Winslow is to stay home offensively, because with an RPO offense, you never know which direction the ball's going to go. You can have somebody coming across to your right, and then the counter comes back to the left. So they got to stay home. They got to play gap responsibility defense, and they basically need to not over pursue, because over pursuit will show a lot of weaknesses that they can start to attack. So really what they want to do is they want to get that 1-2 shiver punch, sit and wait and see what happens to try to contain heat and to stay in right there in the pocket, along with shutting down that option offense. As far as the RPO goes, when they're running the jet sweep, you got to be able to get outside, because as soon as that guy goes in motion, if that ball gets handed off, that outside sweep's coming. So you got to be able to guard against that. It's nothing new for the Panthers. They've seen this before with Tuscola, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, this game is going to come down to exactly what we just talked about. Lena Winslow is favored in this game, 42-21 is the projection right now. That projection is going to stay the way it is. So we'll see how this game breaks out. But it'll be interesting to see it play out as well, because you expect a great game between both teams. So, you take a look at what we have going on. We're looking at a high of about 38 to 40 degrees. We're looking at, could potentially be wet temperature. They're calling for high winds in the morning, upwards to 30 miles per hour. We'll see if that weather pattern holds. Either way, you got to come ready to play. It's going to be cold. It's November. It's northern Illinois. You got to shake that stuff off, and you got to be ready to go. And you got to understand too that both teams have to play in the same weather conditions. It doesn't really matter what it's like. You have to come ready to play, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, when we get there Friday morning, we'll put everything together for you. We'll give you some halftime information and stats as well. Hopefully, we can get a live video in there real quick of the halftime stats once those print out. We'll have to get Kerry off the field and up to the press box in order for that to happen probably, but we'll see how that works out. But should be a good game. Looking for a lot of intriguing play and see what happens here. You know, we'll see what happens. Obviously, we're pulling for Lena Winslow victory in this game. If they do so, it'll be the first 4-time state champion in NUIC history, as Lena Winslow sits in a tie with Dakota, Forreston, Aquin, and Galena at 3 titles apiece. And of course, you know, Coach Aaron, if he wins as well, will become the only coach in NUIC history with 4 state titles as well. So obviously a lot to look forward to. It's going to be a lot of fun. State championship week is always a lot of fun. So we'll see you at the game, and like I said, we'll get you the updates as we get them in, and we will be doing the post-game press conference live through our Facebook channel as well. As always, root for the NUIC.